Hey friends, Tuesday night, time for our Tuesday Night Worship Express. I am recording this, so hopefully next Tuesday we will be back to having live Tuesday nights. This has been a long fall with lots of sports and activities that my kids are involved with that I needed to be present for. So I thank you all for trying to catch a watch when you could. So I've heard from some of you who are still kind of tuning in. So anyway, I appreciate you. So I just want you to know that. Thank you for being patient. And so we have been meeting with youth group on Sunday nights, and we did meet last night or Sunday night to gather and just kind of touch base with each other. And what I really enjoy about our Sunday nights is that it gives us a chance to connect in a way that allows us to let our guard down and really maybe talk about things that are really hard to talk about. And I feel like this small group that we have enables us to do that in a safe place. So one of the things that we brought up on Sunday night was conflict and how easily we can be offended by the words that someone uses, the way that they say it, how did we receive it. And I thought it was a really good conversation about how people say things and we might receive it in a way that puts intention behind their words when they didn't mean it that way at all. And I think for young people, adults as well, but especially young people whose minds are still forming, opinions are still forming, relationships are still forming and unfolding, it's really hard to not take things personally or take them to heart so much. So that's what we talked about. Conflict was one of the things that was brought up. And what I wanted them to know, and what I want you to know, is that personally, I am someone who tends to shy away from conflict. Over my years of adulting, it's not one of my favorite things to engage in, I guess, if you will. But what we talked about is conflict does not always have to be negative, because there are certain things that we gain from having a conflictual situation happen. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If there is conflict, if someone has said something to hurt your feelings, or that was the outcome, that it hurt you, seek to understand. And how do you do that? You ask good questions. You know, if you care about the relationship is important to you, you will seek to understand what was meant by what was said, because this is how it made you feel. And there was some really good conversations that happened about that. And so when you seek to understand and you ask good questions, then you can gain clarity. And so those are some positive things that can come from conflict. There are the obvious negative things, you know, hurt feelings, ruined relationships, feelings of tension when you are around certain people that make you feel like there's conflict in the relationship. So those are the obvious negative things. But the positives, that if you really look for them, you can gain some perspective on not being offended so easily by things that are said by people. The other thing we talked about was taking time to understand, you know, like, what's the goal here? And that's where when you're asking good questions, you're seeking to understand what was the intention. Typically what you find out is that the intention that we think was supposed to be hurtful was not that at all. And you don't know that unless you ask questions. I know people who have had relationships gone sour because of conflict and never tried to remedy the situation or seek to understand what had happened or try to make it better. The conflict just stayed there. And if people sit with that and wear it in their backpack, which is my saying, then nothing gets resolved. And you kind of walk around carrying that stuff that you don't need to carry. And so I think a really important lesson here is not to be so offended by everything that somebody says or by the way that they say it, because we don't know the intention behind it. And you don't have any control over what that person is saying or how they're saying it. But what we do have control over is how we react or respond to it. And hopefully we respond before we react. Reactionary behavior is very, it's natural and it's very typical for us to do that, but it's not always the best way to handle a situation. And that's where, one of those fruits of the Spirit that we talked about over the summer, that self-control can kind of come into play and give us a little bit of reflection on what's happening. So I guess that is what I would want to leave you with, is just knowing that people are going to say things that are going to hurt our feelings. And it all depends on what their intention was, how we received it, what they really meant. And if we don't know those things right as it's happening, we can start writing a novel in our head and in our minds and in our hearts. And it's not that at all. So I've been in that situation before. And when I found out, when I asked questions, or when I kind of, did a little digging to kind of find out what it was that was actually being said to me, I felt really silly that I took it to a level that was really not being intended. So I don't know if any of this is making sense, but there is some peace that we can get when we try to find the clarity and seek to understand what someone's intentions are. So I hope you have a great week. I hope that maybe some of this will stick with you and you can think about it the next time that somebody says something that hurts your feelings. Try not to be so offended by it. Try to maybe just hold on to it for a while, sit with it, and then if you need to revisit it and try to reach out to that person and say, I just kind of want to go back to that conversation we had. I had some questions and I'm probably taking it wrong, but let's talk about it. And more than likely that person is going to be very eager to try to help you understand what they meant, or maybe they won't even realize that they came across that way. So anyway, have a great night, have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday live. Thanks, guys.